There's still a month left in the NFL regular season, and yet already we're getting rumors about the Chicago Bears' upcoming head coaching search. So we should be careful trying to read too much into rumors about a process that really hasn't gotten started yet.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, we check in on some of the latest Bears head coaching rumors that maybe really aren't all that strong of rumors, and how, hey, this process is still just barely getting off of the ground, so maybe let's not read too much into what we're hearing right now before you can even talk to any of these candidates that are available. I also want to make sure we keep in mind that when rumors start to leak out, there's usually a reason for it, and someone has something to gain by that information being out there, and we can be a little bit more critical consumers of head coaching rumors that we're going to hear over the next month and a half here. And I also want to make sure that we're taking proper stock of all the different factors that are going to be at play here beyond just what Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren might want for their next head coach. But I think what sparked this for me was the rumor going around. It came out from ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler, who was a guest on one of the CHGO Bears podcasts over there. And I should be clear on the front end, this is not a criticism of Jeremy Fowler, nor a criticism of CHGO, but more so how people take one small nugget of information and then run with that and sort of extrapolate to mean more than what was actually said. But I want to make sure we pay close attention to what actually was said, what that actually means, as opposed to what the message is being taken to believe. So Jeremy Fowler was on CHGO and said, and I'll give you his exact wording here, talking to some people around the league, some do believe the Bears will try to lean on experience a little bit. That's the end of the quote. When it comes to searching for head coaches like that, they may try and lean on experienced head coaches who have been through this process before and have had success leading NFL organizations compared to coordinators who may have never been head coaches before. Fowler is saying that, yes, the Bears might try and lean on coaches with more of that experience there. But I want to pause right there and hone in a little bit more specifically on what Jeremy Fowler said here. Because, okay, you hear that quote and you see people running to social media saying, oh, good, okay, the Bears are going to hire Mike Vrabel. They're going to go after a former head coach. Okay, so that means Vrabel or maybe Bill Belichick, but one of these guys that's been an experienced head coach, that's got to be the direction the Bears are going. Maybe Brian Flores of the Minnesota Vikings. These are the guys who have had the job before. Cliff Kingsbury from the Washington Commanders. There's your Bears head coaching list. All guys with experience as head coaches in the NFL. And that's not exactly what Jeremy Fowler said, right? Again, this is not Fowler is doing a good job. He's reporting it and he's being careful with exactly what he's being said. And it's people that are taking his reporting and his quote and sort of spinning it to mean more than what Fowler actually said. But I'll give you the exact wording again here. Talking to some people around the league, some do believe the Bears will try to lean on experience a little bit. So that's not him saying the Bears are for sure going to hire an experienced head coach. That's not even him saying the Bears are telling me they prefer an experienced head coach. He's saying, talking to some people around the league, some of those people around the league think the Bears will lean for experience. So he could be talking to other front offices. He could be talking to agents of coaches, other executives in and around the NFL, that there are people in the league who think the Bears will lean on more experienced candidates in this search. But that's not saying he knows for a fact that the Bears will prefer an experienced candidate in this search. And that's what I think I want to differentiate here. Like Fowler is saying, yeah, the Bears are going to be interested in some of those guys based on everyone thinks the Bears are going to be interested in those guys. That's what he's saying. That's different than saying Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles are for sure going to prefer those candidates. Like that's not what he's saying. And that's where like it's important to keep in mind, like this process really hasn't started yet for the Bears. Like even Jeremy Fowler in that same interview on CHGO said, the Bears are just currently in a fact-finding process. They haven't zeroed in on anyone yet. So yes, some people around the league think the Bears might try and lean on more experienced candidates there, but the Bears haven't zeroed. He also says in the same sentence, the Bears haven't zeroed in on anyone yet. And they're currently just going through more of a fact-finding process. They're gathering their list of names. They're building out, their profiles of the candidates to try and decide who they want to interview. They're still trying to narrow down to, 6, 8, 10, 12 coaches that they're going to want to bring in to interview. But it's really important to remember that, like, even if the Bears do finish that process, they can't even start talking to these guys. I mean, any of the guys I just mentioned there, even the experienced former head coaches, they can't talk to Mike Vrabel because he's working for the Cleveland Browns and under contract with them as a consultant, but still, you can't interview him before the regular season is over. You can't interview Brian Flores before the regular season's over while he's coaching the Minnesota Vikings as defensive coordinator, or Cliff Kingsbury as Washington Commanders head coach. The only coach you could go out and talk to and interview right now, if you really wanted to, is Bill Belichick, who appears to be poised to take over the head coaching job at the University of North Carolina and go down to the college ranks. Seems to be very deeply engaged in that process. And I think we've also sort of heard either rumors or reporting not exactly sure, that the Bears aren't that interested in Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick isn't that interested in the Bears. Like that doesn't seem to be one of the realistic candidates for the Bears, regardless of what happens with him at North Carolina. I just don't think he's realistically in the mix here, but he is a free agent, so he could be someone that if you wanted to, you could meet with and interview now. I think technically one other coach you could meet with and interview now who's been thrown out there as a potential conversation here is Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach. I'm not so sure how serious of a candidate he actually is. I mean, it's been fairly credibly reported that he's at least expected to garner some interest there. And because it's at the college level, like I think you can there's no NFL rules against it. There's no tampering issues there. It's maybe tricky because, Notre Dame is still playing football. Their season's not over. So is he going to take time out of his schedule ahead of they play Indiana in the first round of the playoffs coming up here in a week or so? Like realistically, you're probably not going to interview him before their season is over, but you could meet with him at any point in this process. But they're not going to hire Bill Belichick, and they're probably not going to hire Marcus Freeman. Freeman reminds me of like when Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern was always in the mix for the Bears head coaching job. Randomly, it'd be like, oh yeah, the Bears may go after Pat Fitzgerald, and of course, never really did. But for some reason, that was always just thrown out there. Like Marcus Freeman feels like it's in that conversation for this coaching search either. But realistically, everybody else the Bears are going to be interested in or expected to be interested in, you can't talk to them for another 4 weeks. So any rumor that kind of comes out and says, oh, the Bears are looking at this guy or thinking about that, it's like, well, we don't really know that because they don't even know that yet because they're just gathering information at this point in the process. And yet information will still leak out between now and the end of the regular season and throughout this coaching search. And so I want to take a moment here to make sure that we kind of understand the process of how this information leaks out and more importantly, why this information leaks out so we can be more critical consumers of, okay, this rumor is out. How did this rumor get out? Like, how can we best interpret this rumor based on what we know about the rumor spreading process in the football ecosystem? Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Built Rewards. If you're a renter like me, listen up because this is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on your rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks and it's completely free to join. You can earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. And then you can redeem those points for flights, hotel stays, or even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. It's a great way to feel like that rent check that's leaving your account every month is at least going towards something and getting put to good use beyond just, paying another bill and getting to continue on living the way that you've been living. So start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's JOINBILT. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait and start earning rewards on your rent payments today. Coaching rumors are going to keep coming out here. You know, the insiders that are talking to coaches and agents and general managers, like, they're not making this stuff up. And they're going to continue to be, you know, doing their job, putting information out there, being guests on interview shows. And like we talked about with Jeremy Fowler earlier, but Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all those guys, they're going to have their hits on ESPN and NFL Network and CHGO and wherever and say, hey, this is the latest of what we know. And that's their job and what they should do. And we always appreciate it, right? Okay, anytime they can kind of give us a peek behind the curtain and give us some sort of new information. We want to know what the Bears are thinking in the search, what we can expect, what we're looking for in the next head coach for this team. And I think it's important to keep in mind that, yes, these verified, trustable insiders are never making the information up. They're getting it from someone, and someone reliable. Their credibility is based on getting it from someone reliable. But that person or organization giving the insider that information has a reason to do so. And typically that reason is that because they will benefit from that information being out there. And so when a rumor is put out there, the first thing you always want to kind of think of is not necessarily like, ooh, let's try and figure out who leaked this to Adam Schefter or who leaked this to Jeremy Fowler. Like, it's not so much like, you know, getting to the bottom of the mystery per se, but the first question is like, who would want this information out there? That's a good way to try and figure out where it most likely would have come from. Who is benefiting from Jeremy Fowler reporting that the Bears, that some around the league believe the Bears may be interested in veteran experienced head coaching candidates? Do you think that benefits the Bears to put that information out there? Not really. I don't think it hurts the Bears necessarily. I don't think it's, you know, going to be super harmful to their head coaching search. It doesn't ruin their whole process. Oh no, everyone knows that we might want more experienced head coaches. So, well, while it maybe doesn't kill them, it also doesn't benefit them to put that information out there. So I don't necessarily think something like that would come from them. So who would it benefit? And we're just using this as a case study specific example, but this is true for any and all rumors that come out there. Anytime you hear something about Ben Johnson in a rumor, think about who benefits from that rumor. If it's pro Ben Johnson, maybe that rumor came from Ben Johnson's camp. And if it's anti Ben Johnson, then maybe it came from another coach's agent or a team that wants to hire him but wants to try and keep his price tag down. I mean, there's a lot of different ways this can go. So like you think about Jeremy Fowler saying, hey, some people around the league believe the Bears will want a more experienced head coach. I would think who that benefits is the experienced head coach candidates. Now, again, we can't pin down, okay, does that mean it came from Mike Vrabel / his agent? Does it mean it came from Brian Flores / his agent or Cliff Kingsbury and his agent? Like, we can't piece together like who specifically it would have come from based on that information. But you can imagine that if I was the agent of Mike Vrabel or Brian Flores or whoever, I might want the information out there and say, hey, Jeremy Fowler, I've heard the Bears are looking at more experienced head coaching candidates because that generates more interest in my client, right? So if let's just say hypothetically, if I'm Mike Vrabel's agent, I tell Jeremy Fowler that the Bears are interested in experienced head coaches, so that it tells every other team that needs a head coach that, hey, the Bears are interested in Mike Vrabel. That means if you want Mike Vrabel, there's going to be competition for him. You better give us your best offer. You better make sure you bring him in for an interview quickly. You better make him a priority. Like, you better go because clearly there's this other team. You're trying to create a little bit more of a bidding war. You're trying to create more of a market for your candidate by putting information out there that, you know, this team in particular is interested in more experienced candidates. Of course, like, if the information came out that, if the rumor that was being reported was, the Bears are interested in Mike Vrabel, that's a little more pretty obviously like coming from Mike Vrabel, but you can kind of smooth it over and maintain some plausible deniability when you just say, hey, Jeremy Fowler, I've heard the Bears are interested in more experienced candidates, knowing that does then pretty much include your client, if you're the agent in that case, putting that information out there through one of your media sources who's happy to make that report and, you know, put that information out there and like get credibility and attention and, you know, reinforce their their status as an insider that has this information about the Bears on the coaching side. Now, obviously, like Vrabel's not a great example because Vrabel's going to have a lot of interest from multiple teams. So I don't know that Vrabel needs, his agent. Does he need to leak that out? Probably not. So it's probably not specifically, Mike Vrabel's agent in this case, but like the agent of some of these people want to put that information out there because like, I wouldn't think it's just another GM. Why is a GM of another team going to say, yeah, Jeremy Fowler, I think the Bears are going to want an experienced coach? Like, that doesn't benefit them, or it doesn't really hurt them, but it doesn't really benefit them either. There's not really a reason to put that out there. So like somebody has a reason for this kind of information going out there. The other side of it is sometimes teams will intentionally leak out information when it can benefit them. So maybe in a situation like this, when Jeremy Fowler says, the Bears are looking for more of an experienced coach, is that your way of playing maybe some public negotiation hardball against a coach like, Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions? When there's sort of, we've sort of heard that Ben Johnson was really interested in the Bears job last year, and he's going to be really picky about what job he goes after, and that he's going to demand a bunch of money, reportedly, is what we've heard about Ben Johnson. And so if you're the Bears, do you benefit by saying, oh, well, maybe we just put it out there that, actually, we're looking for more experienced candidates. So like if Ben Johnson wants to come here, he could convince us. We're going to try and, we would prefer a more experienced candidate. But, if somebody like Ben Johnson convinced us and was, gave us a good deal, like, okay, maybe we would consider that instead of one of these experienced head coaches. But we really want an experienced head coach if we can. But, I guess we could listen to what Ben Johnson has to say. Like there can be a benefit for the team to put information out there to sort of selectively negotiate and target different people. Like this has happened over and over again with the Bears stadium situation, right? Where the Bears buy the Arlington Heights property and then get into a big tax fight with the local government. And so they put out there, actually, well, we bought Arlington Heights, but we'd prefer to build downtown. We really would. The Bears' number one choice is downtown, even though we just spent money on this Arlington Heights property, have been investing a bunch of time and energy in it. But, we would prefer to be downtown to try and get Arlington Heights to then give them a better tax deal on that. And all of a sudden Arlington Heights makes a tax deal. And maybe they actually are a little more interested in that side. Maybe negotiations with the city of Chicago and the state aren't doing as well. So maybe, they'll just play the leverage game and express publicly, hey, we're interested in this, so that whatever the other opposite party is moves more towards them and tries to build them. You kind of play hard to get here, whether it's in the stadium negotiations or perhaps in the early stages of a head coaching search, where you say, actually, yeah, we'd prefer something else, but if you wanted to chase after us, maybe we would consider it. That's one of the way these rumors start to work. Again, this specific example with Jeremy Fowler may not be that, but when a rumor about a coaching candidate comes out, you have to wonder, okay, is it that coach's agent? Is it a rival team putting that out there to try and, hurt the Bears' chances with the coach? Or is it the Bears themselves putting out information because it benefits them to have that information out there? Like every leak that comes from a real credible source has to benefit somebody, and that will give you a better sense of who it's coming from. And then if you have a sense of who it's coming from, you can try and figure out just how much stock you should put into it and how much, merit there is to that idea. Or is it just some people around the league think the Bears might do something, but that's not really concrete saying the Bears will do that thing? Because the hard part of all this is there's a lot more factors outside of the Bears' control or any one individual party's control. That, okay, you can have rumors and reports about all you want, but things change quickly. And there are unexpected obstacles that come up throughout this process that change what the Bears might want, what a candidate might want, what other teams might want, that kind of throw a wrench into this. So I want to look at some of the other factors that are going to shape not only the rumors that come out about this, but also just how this whole process goes for the Bears, that rumors that come out today may not be true a month from now based on how things will change between now and then. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at IceShaker. If you're like me, your holiday shopping list is still coming together a little bit here, but we've got the perfect gift idea for the passionate sports fan in your life. Perhaps you've heard of IceShakers. IceShaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NBA, NCAA, Major League Baseball, and Major League and NHL, and will make the ideal gift. Created by and used by the Gronkowski brothers, IceShakers has now sold over 1 million bottles, and they're changing the game with these workout bottles, and they can be the gift you've been looking for. Go to IceShaker.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% off on your order. The team branded bottles are really cool. They're really sharp, and they're that kind of insulated material where it keeps your stuff cold for 30 plus hours. They're customizable as well. You can put whatever you want on your bottles, and the turnaround is just 3 to 5 business days. Order your Bears branded bottles today at IceShaker.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market, IceShakers. Rumors might come out about, hey, the Bears prefer this or interested in that, are interested in this candidate, are interested in that candidate. And then between now and the time they interview that candidate, between now and the time where hiring starts happening, things change because there are a lot of factors in this process that are outside of Kevin Warren's control, outside of Ryan Poles' control, outside of any individual agent or coach's control that are going to affect how this ultimately goes. The Bears may go into this process with this fact-finding approach right now and say, you know what? We've done the research on these guys, and we really prefer Ben Johnson, or we really prefer Mike Vrabel, or whatever. But then all of a sudden, and that rumor might come out, oh, yes, Bears' preferred candidate is X. Bears would prefer to get this player. Bears believe this is going to be the best coach for their organization, etc. But then you have the interviews, right? That goes a long way. The Bears might want this, but if that coach doesn't interview well, all of a sudden the Bears thought they wanted that coach, Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or whoever, and then based on the interview, you know what, never mind. So when that rumor came out at the time, it was true, but then the process changed, and all of a sudden, actually maybe didn't love that candidate as much as we thought we would, and turns out what they were in person wasn't the same as what they were on paper. But then there's, of course, like the interview is a big factor there, but then there's other things too, like, for example, price tag. We see there was a report just out this week about how much somebody like Ben Johnson is going to cost. And reportedly, he's seeking a contract that's going to pay him $15 million a year. And, okay, well, we don't really know exactly how much coaches make, right? Like, there's not like a coaching salary cap, so you can kind of pay him as much as you want. But you wonder, because the Bears are still going to be paying Matt Eberflus for another 2 years on his contract. Well, and that's certainly, he was making nowhere near $15 million. Are they going to be willing to tack on another $15 million a year for Ben Johnson? Like, for some quick comparison, I believe Sean McVay's contract is $15 million a year. And Sean McVay has won the Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh just got hired from the Los Angeles Chargers. I believe his contract was $16 million a year, having just won a national championship at Michigan and also having been to the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers and had a ton of success. Ben Johnson's been an offensive coordinator for 3 years, and he's asking for McVay, Jim Harbaugh money. I think on the high end, Andy Reid is at like $20 million a year because, of course, in Super Bowls, right? Of course, he's going to be the highest paid coach in football right now. But, do the Bears say, you know what, we really like Ben Johnson, and we thought he did a good interview, but man, we just can't meet him at that $15 million price tag. We just don't have the money because we're paying Matt Eberflus however many $1 million still on his contract and everything else that the organization is spending money on. Like, I generally don't think price tag is going to be that big of a factor here. I think Kevin Warren is in enough of a position of power here to say, no, we got to get the right coach no matter what, and we can afford this. And I think some of the notions of the Bears being cheap are a little bit outdated and haven't been super borne out, but it's just one example of like a thing that can go wrong. Like, you can look at any of the Bears coaching candidates. You can kind of find some reasons why, hey, you know what, you might like him, and then realize later that it's just not the right guy. Like, will these candidates have any issues with the current power structure / struggle in the Bears front office? There's a lot of questions about, okay, is Kevin Warren leading this? Is Ryan Poles leading this? Are they in a good relationship? Are they step for step? Or is there kind of a battle there? Is Ryan Poles happy with all this? Is there organizational alignment about what everybody's roles and responsibilities are? I mean, maybe they really like Joe Brady, but Brady looks at it and goes, not stable enough for me. Sorry, I'm out. Or if somebody like Mike Vrabel looks at it and says, hey, listen, I've been a successful head coach in the NFL. I want to have some say over my roster or my assistant coaches or whatever, whatever sort of power preference Mike Vrabel might have. The Bears might be super interested in Vrabel and have a ton of interest in bringing in an experienced head coach, and then not be willing to meet the demands of that experienced head coach who says, no, I need more power than you're willing to give me. If you want some somebody to just come in here and do whatever you say, then go hire one of those first-time head coach coordinator guys. Go hire one of the Lions coordinators or, Joe Brady or whatever. But I'm an experienced head coach. I know how I want to get this done, and I need to have X, Y, or Z power or control. And the Bears say no. And it turns out, never mind, we didn't actually want an experienced head coach. We thought we wanted an experienced head coach, but it turns out maybe the experienced head coaches didn't want what we had. Or, there's always the Brian Flores stuff and some questions about his leadership in previous teams. Like each of these candidates, you can kind of find some reason why, maybe even if the Bears are interested in them in early December, that might change in early January. And so the rumors might change, and that's why you can't get too caught up in and bought in on what the reports are with 4 weeks left in the regular season. Because we also don't even know exactly how many other head coaching there will be. The Bears are going to be competing with other teams for some of these same players. So, say like the Vrabel thing. You say, well, Vrabel, like, we're not going to give you that power. And he goes, well, the Jets will, or the Saints will. I'm going to go there instead. All right, you lose out because another team might be willing to offer them what you're not willing to offer. Same with Ben Johnson and the money question, or whatever it might be. You've got right now 2 head coaching openings with the Jets and the Saints. I would think the Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to fire Doug Peterson. We don't know that for sure, but I would think that's probably likely at this point. So that would be 3. And then there's sort of mixed reports on whether the Giants might fire Brian Daboll or whether the Raiders might fire Antonio Pierce. And maybe the final 4 weeks of the season could be a big difference in that. So you could go from 2 other head coaching openings right now to maybe 5 other head coaching openings if everything goes bad for some of those teams, or if there's any other surprise changes. You never know how many options are going to be. And sure, you could sit here today and feel like, well, the Bears are a better option than the Jets, than the Saints, than the Jaguars, and the Giants, and the Raiders. The Bears should be everyone's first choice. Maybe, yeah, probably everyone's first choice. But that doesn't mean if I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm only going to take my first choice. Maybe my second choice is not quite as good, but they're willing to offer me what I want, and the Bears or whatever aren't willing to offer me what I want. And so, all right, sorry, I'm just going to go to that other team. Like some coaches might look at this Bears roster and say, oh, wow, quarterback that I like, established talent on this team is close, and I can come in and just lift them up and give them better coaching, and then we can compete really quickly here. And some coaches might look at the Bears opening and say, you know what, like, I really wish like I could come in and shape the roster my way. Like, these aren't my players. These players don't fit my scheme the way I want to build my team. This is not how I would want to build my team. This is Eberflus's team. This roster is built the way Matt Eberflus wanted. I don't want to come in here and be forced to use Eberflus's player and have to kind of shape that way. I would rather go to a team like, it's just not another, like the Jaguars. Like one of the other teams and say, hey, like the Giants maybe, and say, I get to hit a little more of a reset button and get the quarterback of my choosing and start to build the team of my choosing and keep some of the young players around, but do a little bit more of a rebuild style as opposed to like picking up where Eberflus left off. Maybe some of these coaches want to put more of their imprint on the team as opposed to trying to fix what was already here with the previous coach. And the Bears can't control any of that either. So again, as stuff comes out now, stuff will change, and things about these candidates and other team openings, like all that's going to be outside of the Bears' control. So like, let's not get too caught up in any of the way too early head coaching rumors. When the regular season is done and the Bears are allowed to put in interview requests for coaches on other teams, that's when we'll really hit some more of the juice here, and there's be a lot more meat on this bone. But for now, it's just sort of sprinklings of people putting information out there that they want out there. But everyone will be a lot more willing to talk when the coaches are interviewing, and maybe they have a bad interview, so they want to go to the media and leak and say, yeah, actually, X, Y, or Z about the Bears search, and then we'll get some real fun information throughout the coaching process. You can be sure any and all major head coaching updates we get, we're going to break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming back tomorrow as we'll talk to Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings for our crossover Thursday preview of this week's Bears Monday Night Football matchup. Next week, we'll kind of get the latest on what's changed in the 3 weeks since these two teams played, and if there's any hope that the Bears can play better against the Vikings like they did last time, as opposed to the bad game they had against the 49ers on Sunday. A lot to still break down, and later this week we'll also break down like what the Bears still have to play for this season, even as things still feel pretty well lost for the rest of the year. And of course, if you're feeling lost about this Bears team, then you got to come back tomorrow for another opportunity to bear down.